stand for the reading of the gospel. Our gospel reading is from Luke chapter 16. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an account of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil.' He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so when it is gone, they may welcome you to the eternal home. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. Whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much. If then you who have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. We cannot serve God and money. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. We have had an interesting few months. We've had the three most populous countries in the world all have record-breaking heat waves. So in India and parts of Pakistan, in May and June, the temperature was between 40 to 50 degrees centigrade for almost 2 months. China has had a record-breaking heat wave and drought, where they've not been able to keep their electrical grid running because the demands are so great. And the U.S. has just, in the West, has had the longest heat wave in September. Pakistan has then had massive flooding, and 1/3 of the country is underwater. Many of you know, you've been buying anything recently, that prices have gone up a lot. And at the same time, in Western countries, wages are going up. I want to reassure you, though, in case you've been worried, that corporate profits have not been hit by either climate change, an increase in labor costs, or inflation. In the second quarter of the year, and I'm sorry, this is just American corporations, made $2.62 trillion in profit. That's the highest amount of profit ever recorded in history. And even better, it's the highest margin between supply and labor costs and profit margin. So that things are going very, very well. So it's interesting this morning that there is passages centered on economics So let's look a little bit, and this morning we're going to focus on the passage from Amos, because really Amos reveals the economic framework that God has intended from the beginning, that is useful and helpful for everyone. So Amos says, "Hear this, you that trample on the needy, and bring to ruin the poor of the land, saying, when will the new moon be over, so that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath, that we may offer wheat for sale?" So you hear people of means, the merchants, really angry that they're not allowed to sell stuff one day a week, or during special times of the years where festivals were set up and everyone was to take a break. The Sabbath was established so that everyone could get one day of rest, so that the poor are not ground down by endless hours of work with weeks on end, with never having any break, that there was a built-in system of rest, and also that the land would have an opportunity to rest and regenerate at least one day per week. And then the original system was every 7 years, land was supposed to be given a year of rest, and that the natural abundance and regeneration process could then be put in place. Okay, so that there's an opportunity. And it's interesting, I was reading about one company who was trying to take this anti-consumerism message, and not anti-consumerism every day of the week, but just at certain set periods, let's give everyone a break. We don't have to be buying things every day, but obviously, if you were taking off one day a week, that's what, just a little bit less than 15% that your sales would be down, and you're missing out if you are just concerned with money. But one company, Patagonia, which is makes outdoor clothing and is committed to environmental causes, several years ago in the New York Times on Black Friday. So Black Friday is after Thanksgiving in the U.S., and it's the biggest shopping day of the year in the U.S. And so on Black Friday, they put out an ad that said, "Do not buy this jacket." And then they explain their rationale to say, quote, "To enlighten our environmental footprint, everyone needs to consume less. Businesses need to make fewer things, but of higher quality. Customers need to think twice before they buy. Why? Everything we make takes something from the planet we can't give back. Each piece of Patagonia clothing, whether or not it's organic or uses recycled materials, emits several times its weight in greenhouse gases, generates at least another half a garment's worth of scrap, and draws down copious amounts of fresh water, now growing scarce everywhere on the planet. It would be hypocritical for us to work for environmental change without encouraging customers to think before they buy. To reduce environmental damage, we all have to reduce consumption, as well as make products in a more environmentally sensitive, less harmful ways. It's not hypocrisy for us to address the need to reduce consumption. On the other hand, it's folly to assume a healthy economy can be based on buying and selling more and more things people don't need. And it's also time for people who believe that's folly to say so. The test of our sincerity or hypocrisy will be if everything we sell is useful multifunctional where possible, long-lasting, beautiful, but not enthralled to fashion. We're not yet entirely there. Not every product meets all these criteria. So from Amos all the way to Patagonia, we have a message that we are not supposed to be consuming all the time, 24/7. Now, in contrast to this, there is a fast fashion company called Boohoo that made $1 billion in profit last year. And they sell dresses online for as little as £5. The dresses are of such poor quality, thrift shops and used clothing retailers refuse to accept them. So if you drop them off, they'll say, no, we're not going to take this because we cannot resell it. The exact opposite of what Patagonia was doing for. Another fast fashion company, Shine, was recently given a valuation of $100 billion. And they're famous for their haul and mega haul videos on TikTok, where influencers will buy a giant box of Shine products and shows them unpacking them of how much they can get for $1,000. And so they get these giant boxes sent to them. And then the influencers generally just throw everything away after they've made the video. And then the products go directly into landfill. And there are hundreds of these videos being made every day. So we have this message that sometimes we're not supposed to consume. It's all right to take a time out, to have a break once a week. But then Amos goes further and says, what is really going on with you? They said, we will make the ephah small. Now, in our context, we don't know what an ephah is. And so making it big or small doesn't matter very much to us. But it's how you would measure grain. So basically, the merchants were changing the measurement. So they were selling to people what they said was an ephah, but was in fact less than an ephah. So as you were buying grain from them, they were cheating you. Now, this is not an ancient practice, and perhaps one reason why corporate profitability has been so good is there's a phenomenon right now called shrinkflation. So shrinkflation is whatever you used to buy, if you go to the store and pick up that same item, it may be more expensive, but it's going to feel a little bit lighter to you. And that's because the amount inside has been reduced. So in some analysis of products being sold, right now in countries that are having normal activity, so normal economic activity, the Thailand, UK, US, the inflation rate for the past few months has been between 7 and 9%. But what we're seeing with shrinkflation is that on average, products have been shrunken by approximately 17%. Again, why the profit margin has increased. So when you used to buy something that weighed 400 grams, now it weighs 350 or 325. Same size package or box. Again, this idea of wasting everything, excessive packaging, but then the price increase has been able to be. So we have shrinkflation. And then it says you've made the ephah, so the measurement that you're using for the, and the shekel rate. So shekel is a unit of currency, but it's also a weight. And so they were not only making the amount of grain that they were giving up, the shrinkflation, they were also increasing, the merchants were increasing the value of their own money. And so some financial engineering was going on, as we would say in today's terms. And then saying, practice deceit with false balances. So now, again, we have to think that this was not written for the people who were following God to then go to the outside world and say, you guys need to act this way, and speak as the moral authorities within society. This is the prophet of God speaking to God's people. And again, for those of you who are not American, I apologize for using other American examples. But the two biggest examples of corporate fraud in U.S. history are Enron and WorldCom. WorldCom was a telecommunications company whose fraud was so excessive it no longer exists. And Enron was an energy company whose fraud was so excessive that it no longer exists. And both Enron and WorldCom were known as two companies whose corporate culture actively encouraged Christianity. So you could take an hour off of work to go pray with your coworkers. You could take an hour off of work once a week to go to a Bible study. And so these were companies that had a corporate culture of righteousness and holiness. The CEOs and senior executives would say, bless you. And those same CEO and executives of Enron, when they knew that the fraud was about to become public and their stock was going to crash, and they all sold 100% of their own personal stock, were actively encouraging their employees to buy the stock to make the price higher, knowing that that was going to cost, that basically that would be the financial reward. They were encouraging their employees to put 100% of their retirement into the stock price. So we see that practicing deceit with false balances. So then it's saying buying the poor for silver and then needing for a pair of sandals and selling the sweepings of the wheat. So what does this mean, sweepings of the wheat? This all sounds very archaic and strange from a tribal culture from a long time ago. But again, remember the system was 1 day a week, we're going to take a break from consumption, from work. 1 year out of every 7 years, we are going to give the land a chance to rest and regenerate. And as you're going about economic activity, you should not take 100% of when you're harvesting. You don't need to keep every single mango on the tree. You can leave something behind so that those who are poor can come and get something to eat. But not only are the poor able to get something to eat, they're able to have the dignity of working. So when the practice of gleaning, where a wheat field, you would leave some wheat behind so that the poor could get it, but this isn't giving something for free. They would have to gather the wheat, they would have to process it themselves, they had the dignity of work, but everybody was still taken care of. But when the merchants who were really upset because they can't sell stuff 1 day a week, and then you want to make sure that every little drop that you sweep that up and then you're able to sell them. For example, any CEO who could say, oh my goodness, I could get us a 10% increase in efficiency. We could save 10% of product loss. That CEO, I'm sure, would get a huge bonus then. And so this economic system was set up so that there could be care, provision for the poor. The poor could rest as people took a break in consumption. The poor would be able to get what they need to survive. And then it comes at the end, the Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds. This is not only an explanation of an economic system that cares for everyone within it, but also says God is not a neutral party just looking at this and saying, you know, all right, guys, do whatever you want. When the poor, when the dignity of the poor is degraded, God becomes angry. And those people that we look at who are the winners of the system, we need to be very careful that there is a warning here that not only does it matter what we do, but it also matters how other people are impacted by the decisions that we make. So this morning, our encouragement would be just let us take some time to be very conscious of what consumption that we're doing. Are we following taking a day of rest from both activity and consumption? And then are we making sure that the people who make things for us, that grow our food, that make our clothing, that provide products and services to us, are getting a living wage where they're able to experience not only survival, but dignity? Just some things to think about this morning. Amen.
Amen.